Let's be real. Starting, running, and scaling a coaching business can feel exhausting. I mean, you've got the marketing, the hustling, the selling, all that stuff you didn't realize you would need to master when you decided to start a coaching business. If you're anything like me, you started your coaching business to change the world, to improve the lives of others while improving your own. Well, the truth is, running a business doesn't have to be as hard as many of us have made it out to seem. And you don't even have to do all that hustling stuff if you don't want to. You really can get into flow, into your zone of genius, and get back to the work you were sent here to do. But you have to ask for help. You have to be willing to work in new ways. You have to be willing to open up your mind to mentors who might be doing it differently than you've ever considered. And you have to be willing to actually implement new ways of thinking and running your business. If you're up for that, stay tuned. I'm Hanna Hermanson, your certified coach, international speaker, author, and yes, the founder of Dream Life is Real Life and the host of this show. And I've been able to help hundreds of coaches build, scale, and enjoy their online businesses. Essentially, make their dream life their real life. And if you'd like help improving your business life and get your coaching business to the next level, we might be able to help you. Head on over to dreamlifeisreallife.com/show to get all the resources and episodes that we talk about in this community. You can join our Facebook community, you can find me on Instagram, but more importantly, if you're really ready to integrate what you learn here today and on other episodes, then you'll be able to set up a complimentary 10-minute chat with my team. Again, at dreamlifeisreallife.com/show, no strings attached. We love getting to know you and seeing what are the right next moves for you. But now let's get on to the show. In this podcast, you'll find the real people, concrete tactics, and weekly motivation and inspiration to make your dream life and business real. I started this podcast to bring you the role models that I never had. We talk to successful entrepreneurs, freedom seekers, business owners, and people living life on their own terms. To be a true leader, to create the legacy you desire, and to live in alignment, you need a tribe lifting you up. And I've made it my mission to be your tribe, to bring them to your ears at least, because after all, we are all in this together. Now, let's cue the music. All right. I think we're live and alive with our good friend and a current client of ours, Angie. Angie Davis is a lifelong, decade-long, a friendly face to me, and some of you as well, perhaps. I've known Angie for a few years through other lives and things that we've done. She's a registered yoga teacher. She is teaching yoga. She's also in graduate school for, tell us exactly what, yoga therapy?
Yeah, studying transpersonal psychology counseling.
And today we want to talk a little bit about the transition into the online coaching space. I think that Angie has a lot to share with us when it comes to shifting from, maybe teaching classes or working for other people and, sharing your skill sets in other places and then really owning it for yourself and going full time into a coaching business. So Angie, I'd love for you to just kind of start us back maybe around the time you quit corporate, because I think that's a common place that a lot of people start on these entrepreneurial journeys. So if you would be open to taking us back to quitting corporate, and what are some of the things that you've been working on, studying, or exploring as you've decided to leave the traditional route?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much, Hannah. I'm happy to be here, happy to share with you all. Yeah, it's been a journey. Thanks for the throwback all the way. So my undergrad was in marketing, international business, and Spanish. So I did have a good business background that led me into a corporate role.
At
out of
UW Wisconsin, for all of you who know that we are Midwestern girls up in here.
Yeah, that's right. So, go Badgers. And then right out of school, went to work in a corporate setting, and it was an interesting transition for me, really. Even in school, I was balancing working in more of a mindfulness lifestyle studio setting, teaching tons of yoga classes, and then going to school, into the business school, and like experiencing these two really different worlds. And then it was the same when I head into the corporate setting, where I was, behind the desk, like working in front of the screen all day. And then I was at the studio in the evenings and on the weekends, and that was my time to interact and share. And so that was definitely a journey for me. And I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to be in more of an interactive environment. I wanted to be in a role where I felt like I was more hands-on helping folks. And so then I left that position, and because I felt so much energy from working with others, and joined the startup, working with educators in wellness and yoga. And I was still balancing both worlds. I was doing the marketing and design, and then I was moving into helping to facilitate yoga teacher trainings. And so still balancing both worlds, and at the same time was still doing trainings and of my own, developing myself in that way. And then once I left that position, I was like, I want to step into my own power and share, and take control. And it's been a journey. Like, I first left that role, and you mentioned the yoga therapy program. I did start a yoga therapy program, and I have my 500-hour ERYT in therapeutic yoga. And that was something that was really nourishing me. But I was like, oh, is this it? And so then I ended up applying for grad school a few years later, after kind of dabbling and doing my own thing and teaching online classes, where I was like definitely not able to sustain myself, especially as things have shifted. And so I just kept coming back to the phrase, like, I am ready. I am ready. And I think Hannah, you've been telling me this for years, like, Ange, let's go. And finally I was like, yeah, like, I have a lot to share. I've really been like doing the work myself, and the life experiences and studies that I've had have really like helped me to feel like I am ready.
Yeah, and I love that, your history, like your education is in marketing. You've always had that side of your brain. There was an interest in marketing and communications. And then you had kind of the passion project of yoga, like I did. We would do your cubicle job, play hooky at lunch, go teach yoga, come back, and, kind of change those masks, if you will. And then I think both of us kind of realized in the startup we worked in together is that for me, it was like, oh, there's a life of work outside of the cubicle, and it can relate to my life purpose of showing people what's possible, living outside the status quo. For Angie, helping people just move their body, because we forget that so often.
Totally.
And so we both did the startup thing. And I think for both of us, it was still like, yes, and I'm hearing that in your story. Like, yes, I can teach yoga and work 9 to 5. How about more? Yes, I can work in a startup that's focused on mindfulness. How about more? And your more was down the education path of, grad school, more certifications, 500 hours, yoga teacher training. That's a lot of time, people. And I'm curious for you, in the several years of studying, more training, more certifications, more courses, what did you actually learn in those years of studying?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just the application, like the application of what I'm experiencing personally, right? And I think that's really what has come through for me in the yes and is like, yes, I am working through this graduate degree right now, and I can start my own business and move into coaching. And it's taking all of the little things that have resonated with me throughout the years, whether it's certain readings or certain professors or pieces, and those are all going to be integrated into what I share. So it's like those resonant pieces are coming through. I'm feeling it now, even as I'm working through school and I'm holding space for coaching, and I'm like, whoa, like it's all possible. Like we can hold space for all of it.
Yeah.
And personal experience, it helps us, like the pains and problems we've come through have like really helped to lead me into the coaching role that I am now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there's so much value in the school of life. Like you need to have something to offer people if you're going to start a coaching business. But so much of it is what we've learned through our own experiences. And Angie, you started graduate school this fall, psychology and therapy. Yet you started your business before you graduated. How is that possible?
Right?
How could you really be ready before you had the, diploma piece of paper in your hand?
Right. Well, and it's really interesting because one, like even in my personal like practice and in contemplative practice, there's always this question of like, like how much are we like seeking outside and like this need to know more instead of sitting with what we already know. Like what is the embodied wisdom that I already have, I've experienced it, it's within me, and how can I like create more space to listen to that and let that come through. So that feels really like really rich to me in that sense. And then, I think you said to me maybe a little while back was just like, there's, you have all of these different learnings and things, like you've invested all of this time, this energy, you have all this knowledge, like let's bring it forward. It's time, And for me, it's like, it's, trusting that everything's kind of flowing in its own process, and like the coaching is helping me to move through my other work, and my school work is helping to influence my coaching, and my personal experiences of heartbreak and interpersonal relationships, communication and healing, like it all just ends up intertwining.
Right. And you had so many of those experiences and, wealths of education. And so you now are, you're a coach. You have high ticket paying clients that you are helping work through what?
Yeah. So I'm
right now with all of these things you've done. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all really channeled into how I can help people to heal heartbreak.
Yeah.
So that's really become my focus, and everything has really led there, and a lot of like my own personal experience, my own personal pain, like how I could look back and see at how all these different trainings and practices and experiences, relationships have helped me to come to certain realizations and certain kind of like, all right, here, like I have a really good sense of how we can find our way through this. So let me see, how can I help someone else that's struggling with it so that they don't have to spend years finding their way through it, or hundreds of dollars through all these different trainings. It's like, hey, I can help you out here.
Yeah. Here's the shortcut I figured out. I'm a few steps ahead of you, so I can coach you. I can help you.
Come on over.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell a quick story, even though this is your story.
No, I want to hear it. Bring it on. Yeah.
So Angie, I remember you were leaving the startup, and it was like, Hanna, like, let's talk. I want to figure out what I should do, knowing that's what Hanna does during the day. So we're chatting as friends. And I want this to be a lesson for anyone who's wondering about those first set of clients, and maybe when's the right time. So I was really foraging my coaching business. Angie was still exploring. And this was 2017. This is like 3 years ago. Angie, I gave you the program. I was like, okay, I'm not going to charge you for this. Like, just go watch these videos. I'll talk you through it. Like, we're friends. Okay, Hanna. I don't think you ever did anything with it. Then when you started getting the sense that you're ready this year, we've been friends, we've been hanging out. If we would have had a real wedding, you would have been invited, but 2020 didn't allow that. And then, Angie, there was something happening in your world, this sense of I'm ready that was coming through when then you called and said, hey, I'm ready to actually do this thing. It's time for me to start actually money. And I said to Angie, I was like, well, the only way this is going to work is if you're actually invested. So I want this to be a lesson to people listening. It will never work if you start giving out your stuff for free. Angie's a smart person. She had everything she needed to do this in 2017, but she wasn't invested. And so I just think it's such an important story for coaches to understand that to have your clients get results and you have the business and lifestyle that you want, we've got to work on the money mindset, and we've got to be willing to ask investments from both parties. Because Angie, what's happened since you invested in your coaching business and really taking this thing forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just say too, one of the big blocks for me at that time was just not knowing what part of my process, there was so much of my own personal process I was moving through. I wasn't able to find clarity in what is it that I can offer. I had to find my way to this other side and be like, oh, right, that's what it was. So just feeling into those blocks and then just taking the action step. That's really big. It's just for me in this time has been all right, one, dropping into I am ready. And so what's the next step? Instead of being and
I was ready for you in 2017, but you had to be ready for you.
Exactly. Yeah. No, for sure. And I would, it's definitely been a process, and I think that our learnings come when they come, and just being open to trusting your timeline, but also taking that extra oomph to be all right, that's enough. It's time to dive into this new story and stepping into our power. Right. So yeah, I think for me now, maybe some of it is I turned 29 and I was all right, or my vision was a little more clear, or you mentioned, I was done giving away my services. That's really why I stepped into school and I stepped into coaching too, is I've been giving so much away for free, or for hardly anything, or not really feeling the commitment back. It's okay, I have these weekly classes, but I want to dive deep with folks, and make sure there's this mutual commitment and investment, because that'll keep me in, and it's going to bring the other person so much more. So that's been huge. And since then, I've had 2 for 2 for my client calls, just in the last 2 weeks here, and just so much more clarity around how my own vision of where this is going, and then the day-to-day, what that can look like. And just having this nice framework. I'm such a flow person that the form coming in is really helpful.
Yeah. So I think that initial line in the sand of a decision, I'm going to own my power.
For sure.
Angie said, and this is true for so many coaches, you're a student for so long, you invest in yourself, your personal development, you changing your life, you getting healthy. And then there becomes a time when you have to, or some of us decide to offer that and impact others, not just ourselves. And impacting others takes mutual investment, right? So I said in the little title here, we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit, because, we're talking kind of vaguely about going from certifications to coaching business. But if you're open to it, I'd love to walk through kind of the process that we've taken over the last month or two to get you to this point of being 2 for 2 on your sales calls and having clients, invested clients. So you mentioned, Angie, having that lack of clarity. I have all these skills, I have all these trainings and ideas. What was it like to get that initial clarity on your niche? How was that process?
It was so so, just like that moment of just all the dots coming together, so it's just like, oh, right, like I had to go through that experience and this experience to see like, oh, this is what I have to offer. And then at the same time, like not being overly attached to it either. Because I think like I was like, oh, I need to plan it all out and like know what the steps are going to look like. And like, and it's like, whoa, just like what makes the most sense. Like that we've talked a lot about the singularity of focus. So like once I was able to hone in on a niche of like, okay, I'm working with folks and helping them heal heartbreak. I'm holding space for healing hearts, remembering the inherent wholeness of our hearts. Okay. And then like really letting that resonate, like dropping into like, that's what I'm doing, and like really focusing my energy there. And as soon as I hear like a little voice of doubt coming in or being like, oh, maybe I should, no, like this is what I'm doing right now, and trusting in that process, and that has been really, really huge for me. And it's through that exploration that clarity came too.
Yeah. And like we've talked about, my whole goal, what I bring here to the table in our coaching relationship is let's find that first viable offer, because we just need to start somewhere. We're not putting this offer statement on your tombstone and saying forever and ever, Angie is the heartbreak coach. No.
Right.
Let's get into action. Let's put a line in the sand, be decisive, start getting people in, paying you so that it can evolve over time. For me, I started coaching people with eating disorders, and that was soon not where I wanted to be. But I had learned the skills. I had gotten clarity. I had gotten more life experience to make the next offer and the next offer. And I will continue doing that. So to backtrack and just kind of give listeners a little bit of something to chew on here for themselves. To get to this first viable offer for Angie, we took a look at her credit, like her life experience. What does she know? What is she good at? What can she actually create a result around? Number 2, what are her non-negotiables? Like, who does she want to work with and not want to work with? I mean, I could pick anyone off the street. Angie could probably help them do something, but she has to love what she's doing and love the people she's working with for this thing to work. And then once we knew, Angie's abilities, Angie's non-negotiables, then we started to look at the market. What are needs out in the world that these people, you can help? What are they saying their needs are? What are the problems that they have? And then we built a bridge. We built a bridge that connects Angie's expertise to a real set of problems in the world, which for right now is Angie helping women overcome heartbreak. And so you all can start thinking of that too. What can you actually promise, deliver, do? Who do you like to work with? And what are the problem? How are they talking about their problem? So that's the first piece. That was the clarity piece of really starting this coaching business. And then, Angie, you mentioned you've been getting on sales calls. And in the program, we go clarity, connection, credibility. So how has it been learning how to communicate and share this and connect with clients online? How's that process been?
Yeah, well, it's interesting too, because I think I was just thinking back to around like that 2017, 2018 mark, even into 2019, where I was really in a phase where I wanted to bring as much of my work offline as possible. And I wanted to move away from screens, and I just wanted to, just like feel into like the presence of the people around me and trust that the work would come through there. And then of course we move into a pandemic where everything is shifting online and folks can't really meet in person. So I think that's a really big part of it for me, is like figuring out a balance of how to embrace like these tools and how to like see how we can serve each other through them. So for me, like what has helped me most is one, like making sure there is that mutual exchange of like, I'm spending my time before the screen because I know that we can make a difference in working together, and it's going to be like a mutual exchange, mutually beneficial. And it's not going to feel draining then, right? Like it's going to feel like both of us are being nourished by that time. That's really important to me. And then I think like even like before I had a coaching call this morning, I was like for a minute, and I was like, just come back to, like I mentioned before, the embodied wisdom, like my presence, like what is it that I can share, like just really dropping into with the person before me. And that's really helped me in embracing like the screens and the calls, and like just getting to connect with folks and know that there's some transformation that's about to happen.
I am so glad you shared that, because the intention is everything. And it is not sexy. Like, people who are sick of hearing about mindset, like, brace yourself, because you're going to keep hearing about mindset until you embrace mindset. Because when we talk about marketing, Angie and I have talked a lot about this, because I'm not here to teach you some hashtag algorithm or how to get 1 million impressions on your YouTube video, because that stuff is fleeting. What we are doing, what we teach, what Angie is working, the system that Angie is working, is setting an intention, getting curious, and making real connections with people. And yes, right now we can use platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, but the principles that come from learning how to genuinely connect with people on the other side of a screen, on the other side of a billboard, yellow pages, TV channels, like wherever you want to be marketing, you have to know those basic principles of intention, connection, and curiosity. And I'm so glad to highlight that, because it's tempting for me sometimes to be like, here's the quick formula, here's the hashtag, here's like all these little things, because that's what people are looking for and what's sexy right now.
Right.
But inside the program, it's like intention and connection, and you can do it on screen or off screen. So thank you for sharing that. And speaking of like connection, where in the world are you right now?
I'm dropping in from Costa Rica right now. Yeah.
Costa Rica. Yeah. We'll be in Colorado in a couple of weeks. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other piece I mentioned, so we always move through with clients: clarity, who you are, what you offer; connection, how to actually, communicate with real people and enroll them into your program, have sales conversations like Angie's mentioned. And then the third piece is credibility, because you cannot be the only person talking about you in today's coaching world. There are just too many voices, too much noise. Angie, we're not even through the program yet, but you're already starting to attract opportunities where other people are talking about you. So how are you feeling about that sort of like collaborative nature of continuing to grow and scale and really legitimize your coaching business and presence?
Yeah. Well, I feel I'm very pumped about it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share in different platforms and different spaces and with different people. And I think for me, it's just similar to the coaching process, where it's this collaborative, co-creative experience, where we're getting a chance to connect with one another and to really like recognize each other and how we're showing up and what we have to offer. And so I think as much as we can celebrate each other and the work that we're doing, and just be like open about our experience, I think that's really powerful, and then it creates space for someone else to learn about how they might be helped by it or connected through it. And so it feels good to me.
And feel good, right? The feel good marketing is what we're all about here. And Angie has the credibility to, tell her story. By telling your story, you will build that intimacy. By sharing with people what you've gone through, what your heartbreaks might have been like before you graduated. Again, this goes back to like, what is the real credential you need? And it's the ability to clearly and credibly connect with people who you can help. So studying is great and it's beautiful for your job, but it's going to come down to your ability to make that personal connection, right?
Right. And I think that comes so much through reflection, right? And like, for me, when you said that, I was thinking like, what part of my story over the last decade have I not shared as much about? And it's heartbreak, really. That was more of an internal process that I was moving through. And so then to be able to give voice to it and to be able to help other people that might not be giving voice to it themselves, like to recognize like, hey, we know this is a real process that we move through, like, just feels really resonant.
Yeah. And since you brought that up, I have one last question around all of this like process and our 3 C's.
Okay.
Because we've talked a lot in our coaching calls about the difference between coaching and marketing. And so kind of bringing it back to the beginning, when you were in the marketing world for corporate, and then you were in the yoga space, which is, a lot of spirituality and Sanskrit and words and phrases, that don't always translate to marketing. So how has your understanding of the difference or the relationship between coaching and marketing evolved in the last,
Yeah. Well, what first comes to mind is just like I mentioned at one point that I'm pretty flowy. And I also spend a good amount of time in more of this kind of like ethereal, spiritual like language and space. And so a lot of our work together has been being like, hey, Ange, like, how do we take these problems or experiences that people are having and like ground them into reality in like a way that we can communicate them a little bit differently or to like relate with different people. And so I think that's been really powerful for me. I think that like the marketing and coaching, I think it's just maybe like the big difference there is just like the connection to personal story, like the coaching just feels so much more like, for me, like coming from the heart, whereas like the marketing mind that I had before feels like it's coming so much more from the head. And so then just like finding this like balance in between both to keep things moving and to keep things growing. And I don't know if that kind of answers what you're thinking of.
I honestly haven't heard it verbalized as the head and the heart. And I think that's a really great way. Of course, you would come up with that as you are so eloquent with words, because it really is about meeting people where they're at. Like you said, some people share what's happening in heartbreak. Like, we've talked about like, are they chugging coconut water? Is that their problem? Or do they have internal conflict? And being able to choose the right set of words and connect your story and your experiences and your understanding to people's head. Because when they're scrolling or when they're looking at your website, it is very challenging to speak to someone's heart immediately. That comes in the coaching conversation. So I love that. Right. Thank you.
Cool.
Metaphor. Yeah, so good. So just to recap for coaches listening who might be going through certifications or wondering, when am I going to be ready? What do I need to start getting clients? First, it comes down to the decision that you're willing to do the work and willing to fulfill your purpose. And then it's working through clarity, connection, and credibility. Like our star student and good friend, Ange, has been a beautiful example of. Yeah.
It reminded me too, I was literally carrying a water bottle around for like the few months leading up to our time working together that said on it, "You are ready." So just like also the power of message and, just seeing things around us is so powerful.
Okay. I really
know how much
my water bottle because mine says "Ope" and beer brewery stickers. I guess it says Boss Babe. If you
Yeah,
can,
Boss Babe for sure.
send me stickers. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so stop waiting for the sign. Create your sign.
Yeah.
And be willing to invest in yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ange, for those who are connecting to your head and your heart and want to continue to follow your journey, learn more about you and what you do, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at hearwholeheart. And then you can also find more information about my movement and meditation practices and coaching offerings on thegrounding.org. And then obviously you can find me through Facebook as I'm linked probably in this video. So
Part of the community. Yeah, you can find her in our Facebook group for sure. And we'll make sure we have links to everything because Ange is a beautiful soul and power that you will want to connect with, whether or not you have a broken heart, and especially if you're, going through some grief or heartbreak. So thank you so much, friend.
Yeah.
I always appreciate
Thank you so much.
Sharing is caring. I'll see you, Angie, on our next coaching call. And the rest of you watching and listening, I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life. That's right, friends. That'll do it for our show today. But remember, if you're really ready to implement and take these ideas into action, then hop on over to dreamlifeisreallife.com/show, and you can access all of the resources we talked about, and more importantly, set up a complimentary 10-minute phone call with my team so that we can help you get clarity and some concrete action steps in place. So this doesn't just become another one of those feel-good moments, but an opportunity to actually make a change in your life and business, because all good things come in action. So we'll see you over there at dreamlifeisreallife.com/show and next week here on the show.